Hello and welcome to Iwineti Africa. Here we tell the stories of amazing impact makers all across the continent. Just yesterday, Mirabell Mayak shared a post where she was sitting in front of a vegetable shop and she told us that Africa is the most underpopulated continent of the world. In a previous post, she shared photos representing the overlay of certain countries' maps on Africa, showing us the same thought. And we've said it on this platform before that Africa is the youngest continent. 40% of the continent is under the age of 15. By 2050, 1 in 4 people will be Africans. In today's conversation, we're going to merge these two realities, the young and the potential in agriculture. We're going to be telling the stories of amazing impact makers in this area, in the soilless farming and slave farming. I'll tell you what that is. In technology, the impact of technology and what it means to run a farm with living animals. We call it livestock farming in reality, but I like to talk about it as Animal Farm, the 1984 book. So stay tuned. As soon as you join, share with us where you're calling from, where you're watching from. Share the video, invite someone to this conversation, and we will be back in a minute. Help me welcome 4 amazing young and vibrant Africans who are making waves across the continent in the area of agriculture. Let me allow them to introduce themselves. I'm inviting Esther. Let's get to meet you and what you do.
Hello, and greetings to everybody here. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I am Esther Ofori Boadu from Ghana. I am into livestock farming now. I have a little over 5 years experience in farming in general. I've done vegetables, I've done poultry, I've done rabbits, I've done greenhouse, and now I'm into cattle farming. And so I farm, take care of cattle. I have a feedlot, and my focus is producing tender, juicy, tasty beef here in Ghana. And so we are Freshly's Farms located in Sege off the Adan Road. And what we do is to produce beef when we plant grass and maize for our cattle, feed them. When they're ready, we slaughter, we dress and package and sell to hotels, shops, and restaurants and individuals alike. I am looking forward to sharing my experience and to learning from everyone else on this platform. Thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you here, Esther. Freshly's Farms. Welcome to Iwineti Africa. So let's hear from the slave farmer. When I saw that name on LinkedIn, I was like, this has to come to Iwineti. It's not the slave queen, not the slave king, the slave farmer. Let's introduce her. Welcome to Iwineti.
Hi, Kenneth. Hello, everyone. My name is Rugiatu Favour Kanu. I'm from Sierra Leone, popularly known as the slave farmer. I've been working with farmers since 2016, and what I noticed was that the farmers were old and they were hiring young people to work on the farms. And I was like, why not the other way around? Why not young people own their farms or own the farms or own their own business? So in late 2021, I started my company, Slave Farms Sierra Leone, where I have a 20-acre land in Sierra Leone where I plant vegetables and supply to local market women and restaurants. And then I decided to start a campaign, Slave Farmer SL, to make agriculture attractive for young people, because I think it's high time we as young people start to see agriculture as a career and to do something meaningful. And I'm super excited to be here to share my story. And slave farmer is not only for Sierra Leone, everybody in Africa. You can be young and also be a farmer. So thank you.
Thank you, Favour, and everyone get ready to be slain. It's going to be awesome in today's conversation, in inviting young people to farm. Another awesome person that I came across on LinkedIn was farmer Samson Ogbolo. Let me tell you something. When I began preparing the flyers, I was trying to fit the names into the flyer, and I was trying to suggest, can I call you Samson Ogbolo? And he actually said Farmer Samson. I realized that appellation is very important to him, and that's powerful. He needs to be called Farmer Samson Ogbolo. Let him introduce himself as well. Soilless Farm Labs, Nigeria.
Yeah, hi, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. The company is Soilless Farm Lab, based in Nigeria. We are into protected agriculture, that's greenhouse farming as well as soilless farming. We operate on about 300 acres of land. We want to be one of the largest greenhouse farms in West Africa, if not Africa. That's the goal. And much more than that, we want to have our food in top shelves across the continent and across Europe. That's what we do. And much more than that, we are also, I mean, it's a pleasure to meet slave farmer. Love what they're doing in Sierra Leone. In Nigeria, we are trying to also ensure we can bring in young people into agriculture. And to do that, right now we train 1,000 young people for free in what we do. Much more than that, we provide free accommodation. We pay them a stipend for the quarter where we are training them. And when they are done, we give them space within our facility for them to start and actually fund their startups. The whole idea is to ensure that young people come into agriculture without having to pass the hurdles of uncertainty, inefficiency, bureaucracy in government, and a whole lot that hinders growth of agribusiness in Nigeria. Thank you very, very much for the invite.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. Thank you, Farmer Samson. Thank you for what you are doing in Nigeria. So if you've noticed, we are spreading out across the continent, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and I'm going to invite the blockchain baron of Africa, Shadrack, to also introduce himself from South Africa.
Thank you kindly. First and foremost, I send greetings and salutations from Sandton, Johannesburg, South Africa, also known as the richest square mile on the continent. But what is lesser known is 80% of us here were not born here in the square mile. So a bit about myself. But perhaps before I do that, before I introduce myself, let me commend you, Kenneth, through Iwineti Africa, for not only hosting us, but I've written it here on my notes that I want to share it with fellow listeners, that my fellow impact makers are already marking the first deal into this conversation. Let me see how many minutes. 6 minutes into the conversation, I see Soilless Farm Labs and Slave Farmer already looking at a memorandum of understanding there in terms of getting the youth to work. I must commend Iwineti for being the conduit of possibility. Of course, I'm sure that the legal teams are going to be comparing notes between the two teams so that we can make Africa great in our lifetime. So on that note, let me delve into just a bit of introduction. What may be lesser known beyond the blockchain baron hat that I wear is that I was actually raised not by one, but by two generations of hardworking farmers. My late gran was a coffee farmer, and my mom, who's still with us, is a crop farmer. Just this morning, she was busy sending me updates via technology and telling me that my wife and I have to head back to the village to ensure that we pick up the beetroots. They are about to actually be ready for a harvest in just 2 weeks. So yes, so even though I'm in this big city, I still get those notifications from the village. So my work ethic is thanks to those two industrious women that shaped not just my understanding of agriculture, but my appreciation of the type of African leader I am now emerging to be. And of course, I also got to learn scale from government and corporate. My days of corporate are behind me, but I got to appreciate scale because a scale or growing is an extreme sport. Growth in business is an extreme sport that I'm hoping that our presence in in agriculture is going to shake up things to ensure that not only do we bring technology in this space, but we reawaken the muscle memory in the African DNA that growth should be our heritage. So yes, thanks to my Deloitte days, I got to be part of a deal that I got to spearhead where we moved a balance sheet for one firm that was our client. We moved them from 0 to 5 billion in just 3 years. And talking about that, when I hung that corporate code, I now segued into being in business for about 10 years, where growth as an extreme sport, if it's a business, there must be systems. Then we seek to grow it. I played that sport for about 10 years before heading into blockchain, before heading into technology. And Kenneth and the Iwineti family are all too familiar that we scaled one company from $500 to $2 million US. It was a lot smaller than the 5 billion, but it got a lot more media attention than the others, which is what got us to segue into innovation and raise two funding rounds. More on that later, and that's how I got here. Just a recap on my intro: work ethic. Those are the two hardworking women that hard-coded that into me. Scale, that's government and corporate, got to hard-code that tech stack into my being. And of course, the appreciation for innovation and Africa's possibilities was thanks to my 10-year journey through growing other businesses. Thank you kindly.
Wow. And you see, Shadrack is never wanting of powerful words. You can listen to him for the rest of the show. But I appreciate him so much, the blockchain baron of Africa, the pioneer of eFAMA, connecting the farm to the market. I would like to also acknowledge those who are joining us from everywhere. Nanama is joining us from Tamale, Ghana. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for letting your friends know of this awesome conversation. We have Kelvin Ajay joining us from Accra, Ghana, and we have Eversure James Zantios joining us from Canada. Welcome, and do participate in the conversation. We look forward to your questions. And one of the things I want you to do for us today is let us know what you want to take away from this conversation. If you're joining us today and you're hearing my voice, let us know what you want to take away. These days, time is so expensive, and you want to make sure that every moment you spend is an investment. Let me kick off with the first question, and I will turn back to the lady starting from Slave Farmer. She has asked me not to mention her real name, but I'll try. But she has already done that. I'm going to ask you about the opportunities for farming, for agriculture in Africa. What many people feel that we have an opportunity. Mayak says there's a lot of land, arable land. There are a lot of young people. So what opportunities do you see, and how has that spilled over into your own developing story?
Yeah, for me, I think there are so many opportunities in Africa for agriculture. I had a conversation with one of CNN EOs last week. I'll share the video on my page, and he was nominated for his farming, and we discussed lengthily why is it that young people are not seeing the opportunity in agriculture. And there are so many opportunities in agriculture, but when we talk about agriculture, most young people just think agriculture is about farming. Agriculture, you can be an engineer in agriculture, you can be an economist in agriculture, you can be a researcher. I met someone here who has a PhD and has his own research lab. You can be a processor, you can be a producer, you can be a marketer, you can be a scientist. I think agriculture is more diverse than any other industry. With agriculture now, you get to be whoever you want, and there are so many opportunities. There are so many untapped lands in Africa. That's why when I started this campaign of slave farmers in Sierra Leone, a lot of people get to be shying away of making agriculture as a career. So they come to me personally and be like, well, I want to do this. I thought agriculture is only for young people, old people. I want to do this, but I don't know where to start. And then one girl came to me purposely and she was like, I want to start growing my own fruit and then be selling smoothie. I said, when they say you don't have to actually grow your own food, you can buy from farmers. You can be a processor. You don't have to actually be a farmer. You just have to have a farmer of which you can buy the fruit and then process and make your own smoothie. That already has made you a processor. Agriculture has a very, very wide space to accommodate everybody. And there was a time I was a speaker at a summit. We were talking about unemployment in Africa. And entrepreneurship is not only the way, but also agriculture. I think agriculture has so many opportunities we have not dived into. How many people are poultry farmers? In Africa, we eat egg. We have our staple food that we eat. How many people are producers? How many people are eating meat? Because we think meat is expensive. But people like Esther has found a career into rearing of animals, wherein help Africa, help malnutrition, help people to eat meat. And people like Shadrack trying to see how they can make it easy using technology with agriculture to help Africa farmers. I think there are so many things young people can tap into in agriculture.
Awesome. That's amazing. That I think you've successfully described, you've successfully slain us with describing the entire value chain of agriculture and the opportunities there. While people are migrating from the village to the city to look for opportunities, Slave Farmer is saying that, look, there are opportunities where you have not taken a good look. And she reminded me of something amazing. There's this video going around that a certain country is creating plastic eggs. I don't know whether anybody has seen it. I don't know whether that story is true, but the point of it is that there's so much demand for eggs and chicken in Africa right now. There's not enough chicken produced locally in Ghana to feed Ghana. You have to do a lot of importation. The same thing with eggs. So, I mean, the market is there, and that's what Slave Farm is saying. There is an opportunity. I'm going to come back to Esther in a few minutes to tell us about her experience. Wow, Gilbert, great to see you joining us. And I'm going to turn over to Farmer Samson Ogbolo to tell us about his view from Nigeria, because he has to join another meeting very shortly. And we'll just let him speak to us from his heart. Samson, please tell us, what opportunities do you see? What opportunities drove you to embrace agriculture as a young person, and particularly in your context in Nigeria? If you could, yeah. Can you hear me?
All right. Thank you very much. So, like I always tell the young people that are with the farm, yes, I can hear you if you can hear me.
Yeah, yes. We're good.
Okay. Like, like I always tell the young people on the farm, I tell them the first thing that drove me into agriculture was I needed to be comfortable. I needed a life of comfort. And I saw a space in agri where, regardless of what you studied, you have a role to play in agriculture. One. Number two, you can do what you studied in the agric space. That's the beauty of agric. I didn't study agric, I studied biochemistry. I have some of my staff today that studied medicine, different stuffs. In the farm, we have a clinic. It's not a farmer that is running the clinic. We have the doctors, the nurses, the medical lab scientists running the lab. These are people employed within the agricultural space. Two, and like I always tell the guys in the farm, is whatever strength it is that you have, agriculture has a space for you to explore that strength, such that that strength can become the reason why you are well fed, why you have access to a decent life. So for me, it's much more or less we have a teeming population of young people graduating year in, year out looking for jobs. And we also have a large gap when it comes to ensuring food security. So, can we bring in the right tools that would help young people see agriculture as a viable option? One. Two, can we help the young people remove the obvious obstacles that becomes the source of discouragement? Take, for instance, I always give this example on the farm. I say, as a biochemist, I knew that after my BSc, you get an MSc. After MSc, you get a PhD. Do a lot of research papers, publications, you become a prof. And the more of that I get, the better the life I have access to. But when you are a farmer, you realize there is really no pathway that has been drawn out, which means the farmer becomes lost in the process because they don't know what is first, what is second, what to just do that is simple, that life takes you to the next level. So, what we are trying to do in Agric is, can I help these young people now see that this is what you do first? If you get this, you move here. You get this, you move here. I'll give another example. In Agric generally, one of the other big issue is always funding. You have young people come around to me and say, "Oh, how do I get funding? How do I raise funds? How do I get here? How did you get here? How did you move from zero to where you are?" And I'm able to teach them using my own experience to say, "Oh, we need to start from you getting results. Effort is not enough. Can you get results? Regardless of how small that result is, you have what it takes to fund yourself to get the result at your level. So even if it is only one plant you can grow that one plant." And I say, two, once you have gotten results, you qualify for the next level, other people's money. In other people's money, you are using their money to replicate results, not try to get results, because they are not giving you money to try to get results. They are giving you money to replicate what you've gotten. Then I start teaching them how to put in structure. I'm so glad that Shadrack talked about that a lot. I start teaching them this is how you put in structure, because I make them understand, if you get more money than the structure, your business will become a Ponzi scheme. Why? You don't have the structure to support the business. So you are getting funds, start working on your structure, start working on your processes. Then I start teaching the CEOs. Now, this is the point where you stop focusing on the internal environment, you start focusing on the external, because once funding starts coming in, you are now answerable to the stakeholders, not answerable to the processes, because you should have trained people to manage the process. So this is an area we are focused on. From there, they now qualify to get funding from venture capitalists, get funding from big organizations, financial institutes. We have some of them now that has gotten to that level, and suddenly they are realizing, oh, Agri can be this awesome. I mean, last week I was discussing with a couple of young people, 20 of them, who just started their companies, and I told them, I am giving each of you 12 months to go from 0 to 50 million naira in a year. And I said, I am going to drill you people to ensure you get that. And this is how I do it. I make them read books. All the 20 of them must read one book per week. And we come together and discuss the book. Good part is I recommend the books for them so they cannot lie about they have read it. Because you read it, you come, we defend it, what it meant. And we bring out these books based on where we see weaknesses. Then I teach them quickly, learn how to collaborate. So these are opportunities. Now, why am I saying all of these? It simply means that somebody else that is not in agric but that has the acumen for management has a role to play in agric. Somebody that has acumen for understanding figures, understanding finance, has a role to play in agric. Somebody that understands the language of the investors has a role to play in agric. Then from there, we tell them, oh, the next thing is, now that you have gotten financial institutions are not interested in your little result. They will only give you money because you have capacity for what we call accelerated growth. So I tell them, do you really have a startup small business? Because a small business is a business that will take 10 years to grow, 20 years to grow, or even in 30 years, it's still at the same level. I say, but a startup is a small company that has capacity to grow very fast. So, what we bring the VCs, the venture capitalists, the financial institute to your company is, you have an idea that when money comes, because you have the structure, there is capacity for accelerated growth. And what determines capacity for accelerated growth is, I say, when you start getting results, start training people. Because the mistake some now start making is they start getting results, start making money, they start flying around the world. I said, no, start training people, because when it is time for accelerated growth, the people that you have trained are the reason why your company can grow. I say, now, once you can get to that level, in less than 5 years, you are going to get to the next level where you now have governmental support. Like I always tell them as a joke, I say, once you get to the point of governmental support, as the CEO, you can afford to be stupid. Reason is, if you fail, the government believe they have failed. So they will give you quantitative easing to get you out of the failure. I say, but before then, double down. Which means if we are going to get to the point of uh, quantitative easing from the government, what that simply tells us is we need to work with lobbyists. Lobbyists has a role to play in agriculture, because we need to lobby the government. We need to get policies that favors us, which means policy makers have a role to play in agriculture. So some of the guys on the farm are being trained to be policy makers. Some are being trained on how to do lobbying. Start from first working with the local kings, working with the local heads. How do you talk to them? How do you get what you want? How do you do proper CSRO in a way that it helps you? How do you help the community to help you reduce your cost of running business? So there is a whole lot in agriculture. Now, notice I'm not talking about the obvious ones like the processing that my sister talked about, the logistics, the storage. These are like the obvious ones. But there are a whole lot in agricultural value chain that when young people start having the idea and understanding these things, they now suddenly start realizing there is a role for me. I say, you may not even be the type that is outspoken. You can be the introvert. It is fine. Just sit behind the scene, write what we will say. Because I say there are a lot of people that are doing great things. They don't know how to say it. So be the person behind the scene called the script writer that writes what they go and say. When they get out, they can say it properly. Or you can be the face of a business where the owner does not know how to speak. So you are eloquent, you are tall, you can speak well. Be the face of that business. It took a long while before we knew Dangote physically. It took a long while before we started hearing the Mark Zuckerberg speaking outside. But they had people who embodied the personality of the business, who were the face and the spokesperson of that business. So it's important that we start realizing agric is not just farm. Yes, farm is the foundation of agriculture, but that is the littlest part of agriculture. It is more than that. It's a conversation on life, because without agric, nobody lives, nobody wears clothes, nobody gets drugs, nobody lives in a house. So it simply means that it's a conversation that goes or cuts across everybody that is alive and even dead. Because even if you are dead, you still need agric to bury you. We need agric to decompose the body. So
Wow.
everything. Thank you very
Wow,
much.
wow, awesome. I mean, that deserves a round of applause. Farmer Samson is seeing the big picture. And I just like that line around when you break through, when you go beyond the planting of the seed and start getting results, you can go for other people's money. When they bring in their money, that money is not for flying around. It's for creating opportunities for other people. That was absolutely amazing. If this is hitting you, I want you to just type something in the comments. Just give a response, give a thumbs up, tag someone to listen to this from the audience. I'm going to turn to Esther and Shadrack, and I'm going to ask you the same question, but I want you to stretch the conversation with a little bit more of data. What data is available today telling us of the opportunities? Let me turn to Esther first.
Well, like you said, about 40% of the African population is young. And so we have a very young population, and that alone is an opportunity because a lot of youth these days are into farming, into doing things for themselves. And farming is actually for the young at heart because farming keeps you young. And we have a lot of arable land in Africa, and that is an opportunity in itself. Me, taking my journey, for example, I did absolutely nothing in agric. I did law and I did economics. And law and economics have guided me in my path. I saw an opportunity. I needed kale, locally grown kale, so badly. And all the kale that I saw on the market were imported. And I was like, really, with all the land around us, we cannot grow kale? And that's where my journey began. The opportunity I saw growing kale. And I shared my kale with my family members. Hey, look, I did this here from my backyard. And everybody just loved the idea of having fresh vegetables. And that was the birth of Freshlies. And that is the opportunity that is available. That we are all young, we want fresh food that we are actually growing here, not imported. And there's so much land around us. And there are a lot of young people with energy to do farming. Now, to what Slay Farmer was saying, farming is not just about getting your hands dirty. It's about the economics. It's about scalability. It's about planning. It's about precision. It's about negotiating, because at a point when I had a lot of produce to sell, I needed to go to the shop. I needed to negotiate my way through. It's about striking deals. It's about proportions, because when you're using your fertilizers, what proportions to use at what time, it goes way beyond hoe and cutlass. And that's where the youth come in, because now the youth is into a lot of technology, and that's the opportunity, because technology allows you for precision farming, for using apps, for making things easier than what our parents and our forefathers used to do. And so there alone, there goes the opportunity to use technology to advance, to scale easily, and also the ability to use what you learned in school. So your finance, your economics, your law, everything comes into farming. It goes way beyond breaking the ground, way beyond grazing around with cattle. Now you are able to use what you learn, apply to agric, and there you go. And with the increasing population, so is our demand for food, not just for the food we already had before, but then even our variety is changing. The kind of food we eat now, before we wouldn't really care where our beef came from, whether the beef was hard or not. But now when I want beef that is tender, that is juicy. So there's an opportunity. How can I produce beef that is different, that is a little bit tender? I don't need to cook for so long. And so even the chemists, the labs, they all get into it. So agriculture is definitely growing beyond what we thought it to be, growing beyond the usual hoe and cutlass. Now it's expanding. I don't only grow maize for consumption amongst humans, but I grow maize for my animals as well. It's cutting across. And there alone is the opportunity. And I think that the youth need to be empowered more. The youth now want to do things for themselves. And that is an opportunity. How do I make something for myself using agric? And so you have people who are buying, like Slade Queen said, buying from other farmers to process. And that also is agric. And so once we are empowering our youth to start to do things for themselves, to start to look at these opportunities and grow beyond the usual, introduce technology to advance, to scale, to start to attract funding from the government, from other nations that have done it better. I was in the Netherlands a couple of months ago just to see how they do their cattle farming. And I was amazed, because we are totally not looking at the future. We are not looking at making it easy. And so there were so many things that we could learn from them and introduce into our farming, so that as I sit here, I don't look like a cattle farmer in any way, but I am actually doing cattle farming. And so that is where the opportunity is. And once we start to empower our youth and get the mindset to change beyond getting your hands dirty, and doing it in ways that doesn't make you look that dirty, and seeing the gold in the soil, then we are there as the continent. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Esther. That is wonderful. And as you heard from Esther, lawyers are farming too. And you've heard from Farmer Samson, the whole the whole, value chain provides opportunities for whatever it is your profession is. The subject of agriculture, the profession of agriculture, demands a lot from you beyond just putting a seed in the ground and harvesting after a few months. Thank you for that, Esther. That was absolutely awesome. I'm going to turn to Shadrack and get ready to experience an explosion of data as I invite Shadrack share with us the opportunities. Yes, please unmute, Shadrack. Sorry. I couldn't.
Thank you kindly. First and foremost, let me also send salutation to a friend of the family, James Antios, all the way from Canada. We send salutations, and also to others present that have been leaning forward. We appreciate you. Thanks for being at this dinner table where we discuss food and opportunities and a shift of mindset. Thank you kindly. And on that note, let me also give honor where honor is due. Kenneth, you opened our discussion by saying impact makers are here. Very, very interesting. And I'm delighted that Africa is changing in my lifetime, because today is not just law, it's not just biochemistry, it's not just economics and other, social enterprise that are present in technology, but it's also just seeing how we are impact makers first who happen to be in agriculture. We are not in agriculture and trying to make impact. That's one of the things that I noticed. The word arable lands, or the phrase arable lands, came out, I think, about 3 or 4 times so far in this discussion by my fellow impact makers. And I want to acknowledge that the way it came out, the way it came about, and the strong emphasis on empowerment, empowering others. Farmer Ogbolo mentioned empowering or equipping the 1,000, and of course, slave farmer. That's what she exists for, in order to take others across with her. And of course, Esther mentioned how she keeps making these trips out there to the Netherlands to go and bring best practices to not just impact her farm and her farming interests, but to impact Africa. So I'm in good company. I have a note to make on that before I look at numbers, is that perhaps we shouldn't settle at Africa being home to 60 or 70% of the global arable land. That statistics is comforting, but it is saddening. You see, I'm going into numbers now. It is saddening to see that Africa being home to 40 million farmers. The sad part is that 33 million of those are actually remaining small, and they are smallholder farmers. I would also like to call them hand-to-mouth farmers. So they're not in the room now, and that breaks my heart, because here in the room is impact makers that are appealing to those 33 million to say, move over, move over. Farmer Samuel mentioned that, listen, if you put structure and systems in place, you are going to cross the great divide of results, focusing on growing that one tree or that one plant to now showing results to go into exponential growth. That's comforting, and we need more of those 33 million to move over to the growth side. So I put it to you, my fellow Africans and our global audience, that we need to go beyond being comfortable with the arable land. We need to now begin cultivating arable minds. Worth repeating. Let's shift from arable land towards arable minds, because if the land is fertile, but the mind is infertile, then the Africa we want is not going to emerge. That's what I wanted to make a quick comment on that. And I believe that it was slave farmer, if I recall, who kept focusing on, we need not be consumers only. We need to really, really get innovative and shift our mindset. I put there that my family believes in equipping Africa to become more prosumers, meaning we need to produce as much as we can what we consume, which is why the economists had to find kale, or rather had to grow it when importing it was not attractive. So just 2 numbers on that note: 10 billion 10 billion. That's one number I want to put out there. That's what the African Development Bank is now putting into the ground across the next 5 years or so to bring about infrastructure enabling resources to enable agriculture. The next number, 78 million. That is how much big banks and corporates have been spending in South Africa alone to honor resources, to honor results produced by startups, by either acquiring a slice of the pie, or even buying them out. So if young people out there are not taking agriculture seriously, checks are exchanging hands, transactions are happening without you, my fellow young person, being at that economic dinner table. Last but not least, numbers on the eFAMA end. Just being after launching in 1.5 months ago, we already have 4,000 buyers on our platform, and we already have 5,000 farmers waiting to be vetted through our Know Your Farmer methods. So we actually have more demand than we thought. But in short, I'm grateful to see that my fellow impact makers are leading Africa to cross over the divide that kept same old methods, keeping Africans to have a hand-to-mouth existence either in farming or other sectors. We start things very well, but can we really tap into growth? And with these impact makers around me, I'm already making notes and I'm celebrating that impact is here. And the Africa we want is materializing in my lifetime. Thank you kindly.
Wow. In my lifetime, the Africa we want. 2035 is a few years away. Maybe what? 12? Is that 12 years? No, that's not 12 years, about 18 years away. In my lifetime, the Africa we want. That is the mantra of Shadrack. I keep calling him the blockchain baron of Africa because he's combining truth. And the vision has been the same. How do you create value for that person who is farming back in the village? That was what blockchain was about. That is what eFAMA is about. And like you heard it, many people are coming on board on the platform to move farm produce from the farm to the consumer without too many bottlenecks. I want to appreciate you, sir, for such words. We are supposed to now scale the farming. Farmer Ogbolo said, get results with one plant, but don't remain there. Get people to see the value of producing. Shadrack is saying, look, beyond hand to mouth, beyond arable land, beyond hand to mouth scale, beyond arable lands, create arable minds. And that's exactly what the Soilless Farm Lab is also doing. Awesome collection of thoughts here. Slave farmer, we have to come back to you. And this time we're going to ask you to dig a little deeper into your story. What is keeping you motivated? What got you interested in this? You mentioned it earlier, but what is keeping you motivated in the midst of the potential difficulties of doing any business in Africa? What keeps you going? Share that with us. Please unmute.
I want to say thank you, Shadrack. You're really doing well. And I'm really happy to have connected to great minds. And what is keeping me going? This week, I did my Clifton strength, where is my strong point? And I found out that connectedness, I'm a developer, I can adapt easily. That's what makes me me. And what keeps me here is to be part of something meaningful, to be able to impact my community. I think with farming, I can be able to do that because somebody got to eat. And nutrition in the world, because I got to find out that even in Atlanta, they are still working towards food security. Nutrition in the world has become a luxury, and I have got to make something accessible. I have got to provide food for people to eat. To me, that is meaningful. What keeps me going is not only for me, I keep saying, is also the young farmers taking the next generation to another level. Because just because it's not our fault doesn't mean it's not our responsibility.
Wow.
It's our responsibility for young people to take agriculture to another level. My passion is keeping me here. My love for humanity is keeping me here. Being able to contribute to something meaningful, being able to make nutrition for people accessible, being able to impact lives. I keep saying your legacy is not the amount of houses you have, it's not the amount of cars you have, it's about how many lives you've impacted, how many people have you touched. So I feel fulfilled doing what I do. I feel fulfilled working with farmers. I feel fulfilled sowing seeds, because sowing seeds is feeding the next generation. And that is endless opportunity for me. And that is endless fulfillment. So I get to be part of something I love to do. I get to be part of something that helps humanity. And to me, agriculture is not all about money. Because as Samson was saying, one seed you plant, you've saved a lot of people. You change lives, you change community, you keep people healthy. There is more of you connecting to nature, more of you connecting to people than just making money. And being with these farmers for this long has really helped humble me. Have helped me to see life in a different way. Like with all the little they have, they are happy, they are hopeful, they are strong. And this has helped me harness my inner me. It has helped me connected to people, to humanity, to what I do, to like always see an opportunity in everyone I see. So I think I'm just happy to be in the agricultural field.
Wow. I think we deserve a break now. We're being slain all over the place. I mean, we're just overwhelmed. Man, this is and I'm just going to read a few comments from the audience, the beautiful, awesome audience sharing our videos, liking our videos, commenting everywhere. James says, "Slave farmer, you are inspirational." And those of you, let me just emphasize this. Those of you who are still trying to be slave queens, there is opportunity for you in the farm. Slave farmer is here. She is a slave queen herself, putting her mind to use as well as her looks, right? And she's making impact, and that's powerful. The money you make in this world, I keep telling people, look, if you look at history, the most impressive people we remember today are not those who made it to the Forbes rich list of their generation. What we remember people for is not their bank account. What we remember them for is the impact they made on this planet after you are gone. James also says, slave farmer. Farming and agriculture is more than just money and a job. It's a calling and contributes to your life more than just work. Beautiful, awesome, meaningful work. And Bill Harry, great to see you. He says, great discussions. And I have a comment also from James, more powerful insight from Shadrack. Chop knuckle. That's what we call it in Nigeria. Chop knuckle. Bringing the smallholder farmers into the conversation. We can't forget about them, as they are the majority of farmers. And I think Slave Farm also touched on that. How do you help them to get their produce out there? How do you help them to become better? Esther mentioned earlier, making things easier through technology. Powerful stuff going on here. Emmanuel says, great discussion. Ologo. By the way, the shirt I'm wearing was made in Aba. In case you don't know, it's made in Aba. I shipped it from Aba to Accra, and it was made by Ologo Onwuka. He says, this is amazing. Awesome. There's a clap for Esther there from James. Thank you, Ajay, for engaging. Awesome. We appreciate you so much. I'm going to turn over to Esther again, and we're going to ask for your experience. But before I do that, I'm just going to play a very short video, and let us take a breather. We've consumed a lot in this conversation. I'll come back to Esther and ask her to share her motivation in the midst of difficulties of handling animals on a farm. Right, we're back. So Esther has a livestock farm. Every time I want to say it, I want to say an animal farm. I really like the book, Animal Farm, but she says she has a livestock farm. So I'm going to ask her, doing business by itself in Africa is difficult. What does it mean to run a farm? We've talked about the fact that opportunities are there, but is it that easy? If it's not, what keeps you going? Esther, please share with us.
It is everything but easy to do business in Africa and to do farming, and specifically livestock farming, especially being a female, because it's a very male dominated area. It's not been an easy journey at all. But then one thing about me is I love to bring innovation, to make things different, to do things differently, and to literally bring innovation into what I do. And that is what has kept me. Now, in livestock farming, frankly, I don't think we're really doing livestock farming here in Ghana, because we are just grazing our animals. Literally, they go out, whatever they get, they eat. It's more of a store of value. So I have some 5,000 cedis. I don't want to keep it in the bank. Okay, I buy an animal and then it starts to reproduce. We are not intentionally farming these livestock. They're grazing for so long, they get some food, they eat. Dry periods, it's even worse. Now, what excited me about this industry is the fact that I could do something differently. I could do something differently because I see a lot of opportunities that these farmers do not see. I see opportunity to grow the feed for the animals and to be intentional about getting them to gain weight, getting them to eat the right kind of feed that will make their meat juicier, tender, flavorful, and more tasty for you and I. Most importantly, I saw an opportunity to make impact. And so usually during the dry periods, you realize that most of these farmers need to sell their animals. And so who do they sell to? Well, then I'm here. Sell to me. And you're selling to me, so I add value. Now, what we don't do much with agric is that we don't add much value. Whatever we get, we put it out there at the least value. And that's where I come in. We need to learn to add value to what we're doing. And so I add value by growing the feed for the animals, taking much care of them, giving them the feed that they need to eat, making sure they gain more weight. That way I'm able to produce more value to other people on the value chain. Now, most of our restaurants have to import meat, beef, into the country because the quality of our beef is not that good. It's chewy, it's hard. You, after eating, you have to pick your teeth. We have land. We have lots of land. We can grow our maize, we can grow brachiaria, we can grow alfalfa, we can put our feedlots and be intentional about adding value to the animals that we are grazing. And so that's where we're coming. And it's been a very difficult journey because it's quite capital intensive. Even getting the land to start the business took several months. You think you're near getting the land, and then another family member comes and says, no, this land is for me. And then a whole discussion starts. It took us over a year to get the land. Even though the land is there, access to the land is a problem. And that alone is a barrier. It makes it difficult for people to want to go into the whole agric industry. So you get the land, and then there comes the capital, because you need to put up structures. You want to do things differently. And that is my passion. I don't want to do things like my grandfather used to do it. Otherwise, we are not moving forward. And for me, especially in the area I started my farming, so the chiefs came around and they were asking, why don't you let the animals out? Why don't you let them graze? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And that was an opportunity for me to actually start a training session, because they do not understand why I need to add value to the animal. These farmers are doing things like they used to several years ago, but the world has moved and they need to learn to do things differently. They need to learn to administer medications differently. They need to learn to pay attention to the animals a little differently. And for them, it's just about, hey, they're animals, let them go. Oh, one looks unwell, looks like it might die. Call the butcher. Let's slaughter the animal. Where does the animal go? On the market table. It's so bad. And that is where I feel that we, the young people who are being trained, who are going to school, who are learning a lot, we need to bring the education that we have into farming so that what we are eating is wholesome. We need to change how farming is being done. And so we started to have a conversation with the farmers in the area that these are reasons why you need to get a vet. You need to invest in learning how to administer medications. You need to be intentional, basically. And the journey has been eye-opening, I must say. And so when I go to the market, I'm concerned where the beef is coming from, because really it's just beef that would have died and was prevented from dying. And these
Wow.
we need to be concerned about. In my vegetable farming, that was the experience I had. And I realized that most people bought my vegetables not only because they needed the vegetables, but then they were guaranteed of some wholesomeness. And so in my vegetable farming, the area, all the people, the other farmers around me, I had to engage them, the right chemicals to use, at what time to sell your vegetables after you've used a certain chemical, because
Yeah.
that literacy is missing, it's completely lost. All they care about is that their produce is ready and is supposed to be on the market. And so that assistance that the farmer needs to be able to do things the right way. And so they ask, why are you able to put your produce on the shelves and I can't? Well, you can't because you're not meeting certain compliance regulations. You are not doing things like you should. So these farmers need to be taught. And it was exciting for me to help such farmers go beyond their regular market women into shops, because they started to follow the regulations, they started to be compliant, they started to understand what chemicals do on their vegetables. And that actually has kept me going. The fact that I am able to influence a small space around me to do the right things and to be able to get them to see farming as a business, not just hand to mouth. Okay, so
Oh,
after feeding my family, there's a little left. So I sell to the market woman. But how can I make it a real sustainable business? How do I get other people involved so that beyond me, the business grows? And
yeah.
that is the most exciting part of agriculture for me. The fact that I see it grow beyond the regular farming. I see it grow into a business. And for me, Freshly's is a family farm. I'm intentional about making it a family farm. My children, my relatives, I should be able to employ people around me, not just to come and dig and plant, but to do various things, do marketing, do sales, do negotiations, do analysis. And that is exciting for me. That the business doesn't just have to be buy and sell, but
Yeah.
producing and adding value. In a short period, I expect that Freshly's beef will be on the international market, because that is the goal, to grow beyond the space around us, to make it attractive to other people. And it's exciting that other women see you and the first question is, you're a woman and you're into cattle farming. Don't they harm you? Don't they do? Yes, that's the fears are there, but then you learn how to go around it. I did not know that there were different breeds of cattle, and there are some that are calmer. And it took that initiative to learn, to understand, to spend time with the Fulani guys. And it was exciting. And so even for the woman, especially, that is my focus. You can still do agric in a male-dominated area and succeed. And so growing beyond what we know agric to be, making room for the woman to also shine in agric, actually doing agric is exciting. And that
Yeah.
has kept me going, and it's
Awesome.
led me to go for
Awesome.
several years to come here. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Esther. That is powerful. That is so powerful. Getting inspired by, I mean, it's almost like when you step into the game, you see how large the need is. I mean, that's what I see you experiencing. when you step into the game, you see that there's a lot of work to do here. And you bring your creative juices into play to actually do the work. Slave Farmer has to leave soon, so I'm just going to turn back to her before I turn over to Shadrack. I'm going to ask you to just spend 1 minute and tell us about your experience with middlemen in the farming journey. Please unmute.
This question is emotional for me because it makes me see it like a burden, like I haven't done anything for these farmers. I've traveled to the length and breadth of Sierra Leone. I've been to districts, I've been to chiefdoms, I've been to villages, I've been to town, and I can tell you that these farmers are being cheated. And for me, it's like a burden because they get to do a lot and yet they reap little of what they do. The more the middlemen, the little benefits the farmers get. I also work for the government and at the Produce Monitoring Board. We work with farmers from production to marketing, doing regulation, doing monitoring, doing inspection, doing certification. And one thing we do is to give farmers updated prices. I think that is one way to get rid of the middlemen. Giving the farmers updated world prices. I've just thought of started sharing that in my platform to also keep farmers updated of the world prices. And also, that's why when people contact me via my social media and be like, slave farmers, can we get coffee? Can we get cocoa? I will take them straight to the farmers. Because that way of linking the farmers directly to the market, it can help eradicate middlemen. I've been to places wherein I know the price of a cashew per kilo, and someone is coming to buy from the farmers to go sell at Guinea at a very low price, making it as if he's doing the farmers a favor. And like, if I don't buy from you, who is going to buy this? This is not even quality. Someone told the farmer that the cashew seed is really small and he's not going to buy it above that certain price, wherein the seed has quality. So I was there and I was like, no, this is not the price. And the farmers were like, these are the people we have been selling to. They are always here to buy from us. We don't have a choice. And that burdens me because they do. That's why our farmers are still poor, because they are being cheated. And I think giving them updated prices, linking them directly to market, empowering them to own their businesses, to work their businesses for themselves, to go in search of markets, to connect themselves, to keep themselves updated. I think that's the way we can also get rid of middlemen. Because these middlemen now are presenting themselves as if they are doing a favor for the farmers. Meanwhile, they're enriching themselves. So after you, as a farmer, I know what it means to soil, to feed, to wake up in the morning, the hard work, and then after all that, you get to make a little profit. That's why it's not even encouraging for young people, because they see farmers as poor people. I see my father and my mother has been farming for years. What has they done? I've been to villages, I've seen farmers who has given birth and could not even take care of their children. I had to take part of my money to give to them. And they have been farming for years. Sometimes I lay back and I was like, I need people to help me. This is like a burden to me. So that's why I'm happy to be among change makers, to see where we can help these farmers, where we can make agriculture meaningful, where we can see how we can transform agriculture from this subsistence to industrialized to commercial farming, by helping these farmers, by changing our mindset, by what Shadrack is doing. Do you know what that means? Connecting farmers to market. That is getting rid of middlemen. This is great. This is transformation. This is change. And this is fulfilling to see that now with eFARM, I can be able to sell my produce without middlemen. I can be able to get meaningful profit. I can be able to expand. Because if I don't have enough profit, I'll not be able to expand. So I'll just farm from hand to mouth. I've seen farmers farming just to feed.
Wow.
Because they cannot get access to market. And this is a burden to me. And I am happy that people like Shadrack, and I'm encouraging young people in Africa. There is so much space. Create apps in your country. Link farmers to market. Create apps to farmer empowerment. That's why I'm empowering my farmers by training them, by seeing the need of what they do. Do this and do this. You have to know this. You have to know this, because the more you know, the more you create impact. Agriculture is not all about you. It's about your community. It's about your family. It's about your continent. So we as change makers, we have to come together and see how we can get rid of these middlemen, so we can help the farmers to get meaningful lives. Thank you, Kenneth.
Thank you so much, Slave Farmer. I'm going to just, we are just about out of time, and the awesome points on middlemen. I'm going to turn to Shadrack. I'm going to ask Shadrack, I want you to just unleash what you're doing to solve that problem in this call. Shadrack.
Thank you kindly. So I've made a couple of notes, and I'm sure even the audiences are doing that. And just to circle back, Esther was touching on one moment on how the local chiefs approached her and say, "Why are you not letting the animals out?" Okay, maybe they didn't say it in that accent. That's just me making a poor attempt. But they really were troubled. Why are you not letting the animals out? And it's interesting that in not letting the animals out, she actually showed them that she needs to let them, the chiefs and the fellow farmers, she needed to let them out, because they were trapped in this myopic existence of missing the bus when it comes to value addition, when it comes to industrialization within agriculture, when it comes to adjusting to market expectations. So she didn't just let her fellow farming peers out, even though most of them are men. She also let the women out, because for too long, I'm a co-founder with my wife, Priti Kubiani, who's a co-founder on the eFAMA app, and we believe in not just empowering women, but enabling women to empower women. That's what we believe in. And it's interesting that in her attempt to answer the confused and really, really confounded local chiefs, in a way, she was saying, I'm letting the women out. Let the animals stay indoors where they're getting all the vaccination and all the nurturing and all the care, but the women must be let out of this myopic, what do you call it? Little worlds that in a men's world, they are told, you can't do this, you can't do that. Then if we're going to be stronger together, then we need both genders and the family unit that she emphasized on. We need the family unit at that economic dinner table, so we can start talking continuity, we can start talking legacy. And of course, on the side of slave farmer, I'm taking lots of notes. I've noted here that she was speaking about what breaks her heart really when these smallholder farmers are being robbed. They are being robbed there's no word. You see, in Africa, we can't use this intelligent word. Well, they are realizing less value. No, they are being robbed by middlemen. They are being robbed in broad daylight, and the robbery must stop. It's interesting because the president of Uganda recently apologized about the role that our fellow Africans played in enabling the slave trade. It's interesting. We're talking farming, not slavery, but it's interesting that our farmers are enslaved by the middlemen today in what we can call modern day slavery. And part of that is enabled by perhaps lack of policy. And I believe that there's a lot of things that slave farmer said. She shares knowledge. She tries to really awaken what is the real-time price now of your particular commodity or crop. I believe that slavery, economic slavery, is possible when our farmers are not thinking about best practice elsewhere. They're not thinking about how this has been done. So I'm glad to be here. And on that note, what are we doing to solve the problem? I'm going to touch on my experience. In this space, getting funding was very key in order to now speak economies of scale. And I'm very glad that my team and I did not only raise funding once, but we raised funding twice. So my wife and co-founder Priti Kubiani just did a chat on another agricultural conversation just last week on how particularly women can raise funding within the farming space. You see, having raised funding twice from multinationals, one in Switzerland, the other one in the US, she's now passing the baton. So that's something that audiences can look out for. It's already out on the relevant platforms. So funding for us was key because on our own, we can only raise that one tree in terms of doing something minuscule. And technology is an extreme sport. Technology is an extreme sport and rather an expensive sport. So let's come together to ensure that we are stronger together. So make sure that you clarify your vision. You do all the good stuff that if you rewind this conversation, for those of you that are seeing it later, back to where Farmer Ogbolo said about structure systems, get that good stuff because we had to do that in order to raise funding. And talent, make sure that you are clear on the type of talent you need. It has been a challenge. We wanted eFAMA app to be made by Africans for Africans, just out of the principle of it. But it doesn't mean that attaining that African talent with an arable mindset, a mindset ready to show up when needed, a mindset ready to find a way to win, a mindset ready to play well in a team, not be the star of the show. If it's not about me and it's not about my wife, if my wife and I are not making it about ourselves, we're making it about the needs of farmers, then why should a software engineer come and hog the attention and say, it's all about me? Why should a data scientist enter the room and say, you know me, yeah? You know me. Today, I showed up for work. Why don't you clap for me? We're not going to clap for you. What we should be clapping for is for each family that we drag out of that hellhole of economic slavery. We should clap for that. We should clap each time we bring farm produce from a smallholder farmer, from a semi-commercial farmer, from a commercial farmer to the shelf where it belongs, or even better, direct to your doorstep. So we clap for that. So we are very clear on our clapping policy. We don't clap because we are clever. We don't clap because we know all these fancy things. We don't even clap because our company is situated in the richest square mile in Africa. We don't clap. That's just a by the way fact. But building digital bridges that connect people so they can trade. Those that were not in the room, enabling the eFAMA app to bring them in the room and keep them in the room so that we can do vetting, we can know your farmer, we can do compliance and ensure that just because you are supporting fellow Africans, that should not mean that you're buying a scam. Or even as farmer Esther said, does not mean that you have to chew on this meat all day long. You go like, is this horse meat or is this a cow? No, I'm confused. That's where blockchain comes in. eFAMA is not just an e-commerce app. It runs on the blockchain. Blockchain is a source of truth. I'm not going on all the technicalities. You're welcome to read all about it later because of time. But blockchain ensures that the produce you have on your dinner table is from where it claims to be from, is farmed by who it claims to be farmed by, and all the stuff that went into it is known to you. There is no darkness somewhere or any hidden figures. The only time I enjoy hidden figures is when I watch the movie Hidden Figures. We don't want any hidden figures in our value chains across agriculture. Hidden figures must go, and middlemen must go and find another spot to play with. They must leave our farmers alone as we connect the farm to your doorstep. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Shadrack. Connecting the farm to the doorstep. Let me just wait. Our time is about out. I'm going to let each one of our powerful impact makers have another 30 seconds to share their final thoughts, action points for whoever is listening, and so forth. But before I do that, I'm just going to recognize those of us in the audience who have shared marvelous thoughts. Beautiful words from Shadrack, from brother Shadrack, says James, all the way from Canada. Thank you for that. James also says, more inspiration from slave farmer, showing current farmers how to change and future farmers that it doesn't have to be the status quo. Farming can be profitable and provide a great life. Kevin Ajay, thank you for joining us. He says, slave farmer is making a lot of critical points. That's when she was talking about middlemen. Producers are often cheated in the agricultural industry, and it is very painful. Thank you for that. Billy says, this is where fair trade comes in. Thank you so much. James also says, to attract youth, agriculture requires a complex mix of talents, not just sitting at the desk doing code from 8 to 5. It provides amazing variety to life. Awesome. He also says, listening to everyone on the panel, it is evident that farming and agriculture is actually quite complex. It involves all professionals, and as a farmer, you have to wear different hats every day. I acknowledge everyone who is sharing. Kevin says, the points Esther is making about innovation and education in farming are really insightful. I'm learning a lot. I never knew you could farm without letting the animals graze. Ha ha. So Esther, that is a new student for you. A new student who needs to learn something about ranching, right? About keeping a ranch. Awesome. Wow. Yes, Esther wants to bring great tasting food that is top quality, not just food, in quotes. Doing that can demand premium prices for her food. That's another interesting element, the pricing, because we are raising the bar. But that's another conversation for another day. And I just wanted to mention that she wants to sell cow meat, not horse meat. All right. Then, yeah, slave farmer. Farming and agriculture is more complex than just money or job. It's a calling and contributes to your life more than just work. I appreciate everyone that is in the audience. Do make sure your friends get this video. I think the conversation has been insightful and hot, and I'm just going to give each panelist 30 seconds to 1 minute to tell us one thing that we can take from this conversation as a summary. Esther, let me come back to you.
Okay, thank you. It's been a very interesting discussion. And one thing that I'd like for us to take away is that the future is actually here. We can't wait for somebody else to take us there and to do what needs to be done. We need to start from today. And we need to start recognizing agriculture as a sustainable business. And we need to start to bring all the elements together to make it work. We need to start to add value to what we do. And that is what can make us grow as a people, as a continent. It's painful to see us struggle through farming, see our great grandparents, our parents struggle through it, and we can't continue to struggle through it. For me, what drives me is making Agric grow, growing it into a business, expanding the shores, bringing innovation, bringing education. And one thing I want to do is to be a model farmer, because most of our young people want to see someone who has thrived, who has succeeded at it, who is making money, wants to see a Dangote in the Agric sector. And that is what I am striving to do. And so even as different professionals who are now trying to go into agric, I see a lot of my colleagues trying to go into agric one way or the other. Let's leave the subsistence farming and bring all our knowledge into it, treat it as a business, register it, check the regulations, do your compliance, do your analysis, do everything, do your marketing, do things according to the book, so that you're starting a business, growing it to last beyond you. And this business is in agribusiness. That's what I want us to come to terms with. Let's stop the buying and selling. Let's stop. Let's bring processing, value addition to agric. And that is when we start to grow as a people. When we start to process, we start to add more value. Then we can demand more money for what we are putting out. Until you add value, you are not getting that much money. People pay you for what you give them. And so give them value. Find how to get value, add that value to what you're doing, and present that value to them with all the education that you have. Don't do it like your mom used to, don't do it like your dad used to. Add value to what you're doing and bring others along. Carry people along with you. Train other people. Make it open for people to come. My farm is open for you to visit. Bring people to see what you're doing. Use technology, use the social media tools available to you. And the world is at your feet, you know. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Esther. Last words for this conversation, slave farmer.
And thank you so much, Esther. Making agriculture attractive is what I do every day. So I'll just have to end it with few words. We have to come together as young people to build our shared future. And so therefore my last words will be, dear young people, let's join agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Join agriculture. You can join as an investor, join as a coder, join as a lawyer, join as a gardener. My wife is a gardener. I'm a supporting gardener, so I'm joining in some way. Yeah, great, awesome. So Shadrack, last words for this evening.
Thank you kindly. Once again, I'm very grateful, firstly, to our audiences. And I'm grateful to the visionary and founder of Iwineti Africa for being a conduit that doesn't just bring African countries together, but the very best of Africa's thought leaders in the same room at the same dinner table where this conversation can be had. I'm very grateful also to my fellow impact makers for I've made perhaps about 20, not 20, about 14 pages of notes just from this discussion. Because if Africa is going to move forward, we need to take seriously the shared insights by our fellow Africans. My parting note from my side, there is a conversation that I overheard this one time, and some of you might have overheard it as well, because it's written in the good book, where a person asked the other person, I won't go into the details, about what's that in your hand? What is that in your hand? Funny enough, the person asking was asking a shepherd. They were asking basically a livestock farmer, what's that in your hand, my dear shepherd? And the shepherd said, well, it's a stick. And long story short, before you know it, as the good book goes on to say, that same stick was used to industrialize that space that it was in, to pivot what do you call it, the shaping of a bridge that saved 3 million, a nation of 3 million people. I won't delve into that for now, but those of you that follow the good book, you're welcome to lean a bit on that. I want to close my parting note with numbers. Today, Africa is home to 600 million mobile devices that are smartphones. So I just borrowed some phones from my team to illustrate mine, and of course my wife's phone. So if we're to ask ourselves a question, those of us that are in agriculture, what's that in their hands? Those are not phones. Those are 650 million digital malls. So, dear farmer, if your crops cannot get to the typical retail shelf because it's crowded or because of some reason you can't access it, remember, our fellow Africans, we are moving around with retail shelves in our hands. What's that in your hand? It's possibility. What's that in your hand? It's a retail shelf. What's that in your hand is what could move Africa forward out of the archaic days into the Africa we want. And maybe for argument's sake, some of you may not be aware, every quarter, 50 million phones are shipped to Africa from around the world. I'm looking forward to a time where each of those phones can be turned into a connected Africa. And you mentioned 2035 earlier on, Kenneth. That is not too far away. In about 599 Saturdays from today, Africa will not only be at 2035, but we will also be more than 2 billion. I believe it was Farmer Esther who mentioned that other nations, or it might have been Slave Farmer who mentioned that even first world countries are battling food security. Would that be a food insecure Africa, where 2 billion people are either battling to get food at all or get good quality food from the likes of Farmer Esther? That's a question. But that question, we can answer it today, because as Farmer Esther said, the future is here. Thank you kindly.
Wow, thank you very much, Shadrack. And I want to extend thank you to Esther for Boadu. Thank you to Slave Farmer, also known as, should I say the name? Okay. Of course, we said the name already. And thank you so much, Shadrack. And I want to extend a thanks for the records to Farmer Samson Ogbolo, all the way from Nigeria, doing amazing work. And like Shadrack used to say, to be continued. We shall have future conversations together and keep pushing the agenda for a better society in our part of the world. I'm going to say goodbye to the external audience, but those of us in-house will just spend a few more minutes saying our goodbyes. So for those of you joining us from everywhere, do share the video. This will be on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and LinkedIn page, even after now. Let other people know about this. Till next time on Iwineti Africa, my name is Kenneth Igiri.